Hey guys, we are continuing in our Holy Week series. Yesterday we talked about Jesus coming back to Jerusalem and flipping the tables outside of the temple because it was distracting people from the purpose of the temple, which was to praise God, to pray to Him, and instead they turned it into a place where they could sell things and take advantage of people. And the day before that was our Sunday service talking about Palm Sunday when Jesus first entered Jerusalem before He would be crucified and come back from the grave. And today we're going to continue in that. There's a lot of stuff that happened on this Tuesday of Holy Week. And if you haven't, make sure you check out Drew's devotionals he's doing as well, because he's also covering this at the same time. But today we're going to be looking at Matthew 23, verses 25 through 32. Matthew 23, verses 25 through 32. I had to look around the camera because I have it set up back there. But what we're seeing here is Jesus has been teaching through parables, teaching people in the temples. As we saw yesterday, he's decided he would start teaching in the temples. And we see Pharisees, which are basically the teachers of the law, the people who kind of held themselves up above everybody else. Very much holier than thou, very dependent on being righteous and making a big show of what it meant to follow God, which really was following all these rules that they had made up that only they could fulfill because they were the only ones who had the time and the capabilities to do so. But so Jesus is teaching, and basically they are the ones who end up leading the crucifixion movement against Jesus, because Jesus is teaching and he's coming in and saying that you don't have to be a Pharisee to follow God. You don't have to live these specific laws. You just need to love God and have Him change you. And so they are challenging Jesus at every turn. And so Jesus is responding to them. These are called the woes, which is not the woe. But the translation I'm going to read from, instead of saying woe to you, says, what sorrow awaits you. And I think that's a really easy way to understand what it means. Like, yes, this stuff is coming. It's sorrow that awaits you because you're missing out on what it really means to have a relationship with God. So if you'll pick up with me in verse 25, it says, what sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will become clean too. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Outwardly you look like religious people, but inwardly your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you build tombs for the prophets your ancestors killed, and you decorate the monuments of godly people your ancestors destroyed. And then you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would never have joined them in killing the prophets. But in saying that, you testify against yourselves that you are indeed the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Go ahead and finish what your ancestors started. Snakes, sons of vipers, how will you escape the judgment of hell? And so this is a really harsh condemnation, right? I mean, it starts from talking about how people are more worried about cleaning the outside of all these religious ceremony things and don't care about the inside, and that they're like a tomb. You know, Jesus is really condemning them in this point. He's saying time and time again that these people, these teachers of the law, the Pharisees, they were way more worried about how they appeared. They really wanted to look good, I mean, maybe physically, but they wanted to look like they were doing everything right. But they ignored everything on the inside. They looked like they were following God, but on the inside it says that they were full of greed, self-indulgence, hypocrisy, lawlessness. Jesus is saying that what's more important is cleaning the inside. He's saying that they should wash the inside of the cup, that they should empty out the tomb. He's saying that outwardly you can look one way, but inwardly is what needs to be changed. Your inward person. So I think what this does for us is it makes us stop and it makes us look at our own lives. It makes us look and say, are we like these Pharisees? Are we more worried about how we appear, that we're doing the right things, that we look like people who are following God? Or are we more worried about what's on the inside? Are we more worried about being changed by Jesus, about having the fruit of this, having love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control? Are we more worried about that, or are we more worried about looking like we love people, about looking like we're patient? Because if we're more worried about that, Jesus says to these Pharisees to go ahead and finish what they started. So this is our challenge. Our challenge to examine ourselves to see where we are and how we live our lives. Are we following God on the inside and letting that change our outside? Are we more worried about looking good and looking clean and looking nice than we are about what's on the inside? So that's our challenge for today. And tomorrow we'll continue along in this Holy Week, and we will see what Jesus has to say to us about how we should be living our lives today.